Hey folks, this is Richie, April 30th, 2009. Just wanted to show you all the last couple of updates I made to my Ezip Moutain Trailz bike. One of the last things we did is we added some real foam hand grips, which are really comfortable if you get close up here. And you can see the difference between the grips. And these are full-size grips, not the little junk that Curry supplied. In order to install these, you just loosen the Allen screws and you can just slide these out just to the end where the bar starts to curve, and you got a full-size grip. And same thing with the throttle side. It's really comfortable. We've been really working the bike over for total comfort here, so that's obvious. And the other thing was we installed what you could move over here. Our new Pannier bags that hold our batteries. Is something funny? These bags hold our B&B 20 amp hour batteries. My wife is just making me laugh here, folks, so just bear with me. What I liked about these bags is that they're heavy canvas, and they're actually very narrow, and they're not really like large suitcases off the bike, which is what I didn't want. And what I did was, in order to support them, of course it lies down on the rack, and I was able to use my existing sunlight bag. But I built a stainless steel shelf here where the batteries are actually sitting on. And then, if you could walk the camera around, and if you could just film this part. Right here I drilled a couple holes through the bag. There's a 1/8 of an inch thick piece of plastic that's part of the bag that helps maintain a nice shape. And I drilled 2 holes, two on this side and 2 on the other side, and just put a couple tie straps in so it really holds it nice, rather than depend on the bag's elastic strap, because you got to remember we have 28 pounds of batteries in here now, so we want to make sure these bags are nice and tight. I also did away with the stock Ezip battery blocks, as I call them. And you know, these were originally mounted here, and what I did is I reused the original screws, and that's how I attached the shelf that I built. And I'll also on the website I'll also have a couple of photos, so you can actually see what the setup looks like without the bags on it. And the batteries, I don't know if we could get a shot of this. I also snipped a hole for the wiring to go through, and these wires actually go through the aluminum box, the stock Curry electronics box. And there's a bungee cord that also holds the batteries together, you know, from jiggling around. So, you know, the whole system really works very, very well. And why don't you come over on this side, right over here, right over here, right over here, and you could point the camera here. Now, I also added a watts up meter, so when you turn on the battery switch, the watts up meter comes on, and it shows the current volts. I've had a problem hooking up the load side. This is the source side of the batteries hooked into the on-off switch. I've just had a bit of a problem getting the load side to work. So when you run the throttle, it really only shows the volts, but it won't show the loads or anything. But I'm sure it's just a problem that I've got to sort out with the wiring. But otherwise, it works a lot better than that original Curry throttle did with those ridiculous LED lights. So this is the driver's vantage point here. The one thing I wanted to mention in the last video I did is that I installed, as I said earlier, the temperature meter for the motor. Now, if you're running 24 volts like I am, this meter really isn't necessary. I mean, it may peak in 95-degree weather to like 108 degrees, but if I had to buy it again, I probably wouldn't, because it isn't necessary. If you're running 36 volts, you would definitely want some sort of meter to keep an eye on the heat of the motor, because it will definitely get hot. But, you know, it's there. I spent the money. It's on it. So it'll stay. And also back here, some of you may not realize that you can grease the motor. don't know if the camera could pick it up. There's a little plug here. You just pop the plug out, and I usually inject some Teflon grease right into the plug while the motor is turning. Now I have a bicycle work stand here, and while the gearbox is turning, I'll inject it in, and it pulls all the grease right into the gearing, and you can see how quiet the motor is. I recently actually just greased it yesterday, and so the bike is all set up. The only other thing that I will be checking is I want to take apart the kickstand, because members have had a problem with the stops in the kickstand suddenly just wearing out and the bike's dropping to the ground. Now with another 28 pounds of weight back here, I'm definitely careful about it, so I tend to just keep it up on the stand. The company that makes this, their website isn't around anymore, and it seems unfortunate because the stand only cost me like $12 or $15, and it supports the bike perfectly, and it's been so much. It makes it so much easier when you're lubricating the the chains and everything, rather than trying to do it with the kickstand down. And also, some of you may not be too comfortable with the original stock Curry seat, which was my problem. When I first got the bike, I was, I wasn't in that great a shape, and I could drive the bike a few miles and it didn't bother me. But as I got stronger, and started to ride 8, 10, 12 miles at a time, the bike just became so uncomfortable. So that's why I purchased one of these old-fashioned moped seats. This one is made by General and is about 9 or 10 inches wide. If you have the chance to get the moped seat made by Pook, you could probably pick the seats up for about $25 to $30 used, delivered from eBay. And these seats also have a nice shock absorber built into it, coupled with the Curry shock absorber down tube. And the bike is just absolute comfort now. Between the seat, the new RockShox front suspension, and the hand grips, and we also added higher 5-inch handlebars, so your riding position is sort of straight up. It adds a little more wind resistance, but if you cinch down, you could gain about another half a mile an hour. But basically, we've set the bike up for total comfort and a lot of safety with the strobe lights. We drive with the lights on. We got the Miracle mirrors, and I definitely recommend these mirrors to anyone. And they just go right on. The only other thing I wanted to mention about the Curry down tube for the seat is that it is adjustable. I don't know if a lot of you are aware of that. I'm sure I mentioned it in the instructions. If you're on your bike and you're bottoming out, it's not adjusted right. You just loosen the seat, pull it out, and there's a screw at the end of the tube, and you turn it one way in either direction and put it back on and test it. If it's too soft and you're bottoming it out, tighten it up 1 or 2 turns, and you'll see, unless you're going over a really hard bump, you should never be bottoming this out. But that's about it. And again, I'll post some photos of what this looks like without the bags on, so you can actually see how I ran the wires. Aside from that, the upgrades are done with it. At this point, I'm just going to be replacing parts as they wear